So I guess we should maybe start with like that era. Like, just explain to me a little bit. So right before dry storage is found, dry storage is like not the continuation, but it's like there was wet storage came first, right?
Yeah, so there was a way to get storage with the forest water, but because you had to wait those 20 minutes for the forest water to expire, it was really tricky to apply it in more than just the cabana deed skip.
Yeah. Okay. So once we find dry storage, right? What does that do for the route? Like, obviously, there's a lot of things that are going to change because what can you do with storage, with dry storage? I mean, obviously, it's everything. That's kind of a broad question now that I think about it.
Yeah, probably the biggest initial thing is super swimming. There was some really long sailing sections before dry storage, and those just kind of got replaced with super swims. Runners also got way better at super swims over time, so more and more of those got implemented until eventually, like almost every single sailing section got replaced with a super swim. That did take time though.
Yeah.
And then the other main thing that you get with storage is inside of dungeons, you can do chest storage. So as long as there's a place where you can get dry storage, which is pretty much any ledge that has a wall behind it, and there's a chest, you can change your hitbox and walk around and like walk up walls and go through walls. So that enables like big key skips and just faster routes through dungeons.
Gotcha. I feel like I have seen examples of that, but nothing's super really coming into my mind. But so it changes your hitbox because normally when Link goes and like, doesn't he like? I'm thinking of Ocarina of Time where he like leans into, he, like jumps halfway and he's like hanging on by his waist, and, like reaching into the chest. I don't know if that's the same or not.
Yeah, so with that chest animation, there's actually like a collision function in the game that certain parts of the collision checking get disabled while you're opening a chest, and then even more parts of the collision checking get disabled when you are opening a door. And the reason that they did that is so that you can play out that chest opening animation all the way, since Link actually leans into the chest and they need that to work. But then with chest storage, you like cancel the chest opening animation, so you get to keep those properties while actually moving around.
There you go. Excuse me. All right. So that helps with cabana deed skip as well, right? That makes things more consistent, I imagine.
Right. So there's the chest storage cabana deed skip where you use the hook shot to just go through the door. So there just happens to be trees behind the cabana that you can hook shot. And then you just like go through the loading zone. And there's also a chest on that island. Like it could not be more convenient, honestly.
Yeah, I always find it funny going back to these games where it's like, man, this is just the perfect storm of every trick that we need.
Yeah. Sometimes things just work out just barely.
Yeah. But then there's always those other stories of like there's like everything we have except for like one thing. And that's always a sad story. So I guess it goes both ways.
Yeah.
All right.
The other interesting thing with chest storage is you had like Dragon Roost Cavern that used to have a big key skip with a zombie hover that got replaced with an easier one with dry storage. There was a faster route through Forbidden Woods that also, like, you used to use zombie hovering to get to the mini boss earlier, so that got replaced with a chest storage route. There's also a big key skip for that dungeon with chest storage. In Earth Temple, that dungeon completely changed with chest storage. The routes for both the first half and the second half of the dungeon. And then Wind Temple as well. There was a chest storage route that got developed more so in 2013. But chest storage was eventually used to get to the mini boss there and also to skip the big key in that dungeon as well. So there were like tricks for some of this stuff in dungeons that used either ledge clips or zombie hovers, and eventually the storage strats kind of took over because you just have so much potential with that smaller hitbox.
Absolutely. Yeah. Whenever I think of Wind Waker, storage is the first thing that comes to mind. And I think it's just because it's so ubiquitous.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is like Wind Waker dives it's like around 2 frames to get the dive, and then storage is frame perfect. So it's not like a super easy trick, but it's easy enough that you can do it consistently and it feels good to get it. So it's cool that this thing like shows up 50 times throughout the run.
Yeah. Not to mention, I think for the most part, you can always retry it if you fail it.
Right. Yeah, super quickly.
So that's good. Because a frame perfect trick that you can't retry sucks.
Yeah.
So. Okay. So I guess we'll kind of move away a little bit from the tricks and things for a second. And around this time, it's like it's going back and forth a lot between Narcissa and Demon. What can you tell me about both of those runners, like, and about their styles or motivations, or like as characters, as people? Like, what can you tell me about them?
So Narcissa was one of the biggest streamers on Twitch at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So just having that audience brought a lot of interest to the game. It brought runners to the game. So I know I found out about Wind Waker speedruns through her stream. So I think that was a big thing. I think Demon, to some extent, focused more on finding strats than Narcissa did, but to some extent, they were both very focused on runs for a lot of the time. And a lot of the strats, like in late 2012 and early 2013, were found by other people. And I think that's different from the experience that you get in some other games where the top runners are also finding all of the strats. Although Demon does have like his fair share of contributions to the game.
Yeah. Depending on the game, it's like I feel like there's almost, well, Zelda in particular, there's this huge community of glitch hunters and strat finders in the background.
Yeah.
That always help support people. So
yeah, this game definitely had that for a long time with many different people. If we like go through the discoveries, we can obviously get the names of those people.
Exactly.
Something else that's interesting, I think both Narcissa and Demon a lot of the time, and just like throughout this game's history, but they especially, as storage got found, just optimized the very small sections of the run. So that's why the time kept going down just throughout the year. A lot of the changes that happened to the run were just small optimizations in movement that they found by just experimenting in the game and just going off of each other's strats. So like maybe they didn't find like huge discoveries a lot of the time, but the smaller things were things they like messed around with on stream before and after runs.
Absolutely. Yeah, it looks like they saved like 20-ish minutes or so across from like September to June of 2013, just like chipping away, a minute at a time.
Right. A lot of what happened in 2013, a lot of those contributions, like the Great First Super Swim, Bombs Early, Delivery Bag Skip, those were discussed on the Zelda Speedruns forums. So someone would make a post suggesting a route, and then Narcissa would see that post and test it out on stream. And then just based on that, other runners would decide whether or not to use the route. It was actually interesting. So I think now with speedrunning communities, it's just expected that there is a Discord server where everyone talks. And there's sort of like these big channels where anyone can post new discoveries. And it's really easy to spread information to everyone. I think back then there was this dynamic where everything kind of went through Narcissa and Demon because they were the big streamers. And there wasn't one centralized place for people to quickly communicate with each other.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people had Skype groups at the time that were sort of small, or they were just direct messaging other runners that they knew.
Mm-hmm.
But there wasn't like this one big community place besides Narcissa's stream.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people take it for granted, Discord nowadays. But I would imagine that even if there was a Skype group, there's no way you can get every Wind Waker runner in there. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's already a big community.
Yeah, at the time the community was actually like significantly bigger than it is now. I think the community in like 2013 was probably the biggest that it's ever been. I mean, okay, I'd say now it's bigger with if you count HD and randomizer.
Mm-hmm.
But just for the vanilla game, that was probably the most active runners that we've had.
Mm.
A lot of people were running Master Sword or like Dense Pearl, those shorter categories instead of any percent, but there was still a lot of people just involved and playing the game.
Yeah, I think I was talking to EJ 125 or whatever the numbers are. And he more or less mentioned that like the game has just gotten harder and it's just making it more not inaccessible, but I guess less accessible is probably the word I'm trying to say to new runners and new blood. Like just the harder it gets, the less likely new people are going to join. And I think that storage era, I know about that storage era, right? As like a casual viewer, I have memories of that storage era. So I think it's not that much of a stretch to say that like someone who barely watched any Wind Waker runs, I knew much about it. I knew that much about it, right? And then it's like as time went on, things got more and more difficult and I didn't follow. So I think that tracks. If that makes sense.
Yeah, this is like sort of tangential, but the storage era strats, a lot of that carried over to the randomizer. So you kind of get that style of gameplay where it's like kind of broken, but you're not doing like barrier skip and all of this super ridiculous stuff.
Interesting. Okay. Well, getting back to it then. Let's see here. Bombs early was a thing, right?
Right. So
tell me about that.
That was one of the biggest route changes that this game has had. So in June of 2013, there was a route change to start super swimming to Great Fish. Previously, the runners would just sail to that island.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that it took so long to implement that super swim in particular is because it's difficult to actually end up on that island with the super swim. So normally you can just super swim to an island and just be totally fine, pull out the Wind Waker to cancel your camera lock. But that island specifically has a cutscene that you cannot completely skip with double storage. And that means you need to pull out either the Wind Waker or the sail on the beach before the cutscene starts, which is just really tricky to do, kind of depends on loading times. You need enough speed. So all of these factors that make it pretty inconsistent, really difficult, and you lose like 40 seconds per attempt or something. So just that like super swim to Great Fish route change took a while. And the Great Fish super swim is strictly required to be able to do bombs early because you need to get to Great Fish to trigger the Endless Night sequence, which will then spawn the pirate ship at Windfall, which will then let you get the bombs there.
Gotcha.
So once that Great Fish super swim was implemented, then bombs early became a much more serious discussion because all you really had to do to make bombs early happen was go to Great Fish before Forbidden Woods instead of after, and then use the bombs in Forbidden Woods instead of the boomerang.
Okay.
And I guess like in retrospect, it's totally a no-brainer that bombs early would be faster because the boomerang takes minutes to get. And it really doesn't save that much time. Sure, it saves time in like combat later in the game. That might be like 5 seconds per fight or something. But then with the bombs, you can just go through that dungeon without going to the mini boss at all. And you don't really lose much time anywhere. So there's like basically not many downsides to it. Some concerns with it when that route originally came up, besides the boomerang thing, which was completely overblown. So one concern was getting to Outset Island after Forbidden Woods. So it's like a very long distance to get to there. So the super swim that was done was from Forbidden Woods to Southern Ferry, and then you would like keep your camera lock and get an air refill there, and then go all the way to Outset from there.
Mm-hmm.
It was like this awkward super swim that I guess people were kind of hesitant to do, but it's still totally worth it to do that. Mm-hmm. The previous route was just going all the way from Windfall to Outset, which was like a much nicer super swim because you can get like infinite air refills at Windfall Island. So yeah, you basically like got this awkward super swim instead.
Okay. Can you elaborate more on what makes it awkward?
Yeah, so basically like going to that ferry island, once you're in camera lock, your controls are kind of tricky. They depend on the angle that you had when you initially pulled out the Wind Waker. So that just makes it hard to actually maneuver on land. It's like your camera's frozen, but then your controls depend on what your camera angle was back when you pulled the Wind Waker like 30 seconds ago. So you're trying to like, once you're on the ferry island, get back in the water and then charge your super swim, and also make sure that you don't touch the land after you start charging. So it's just something that's easy to mess up and just bleed some time on.
Okay, I think I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, so so that just saves minutes because you just skip the boomerang entirely.
Yeah.
So okay.
And no, it should not have taken 2 months for us to find that.
That's usually, in retrospect, it's always like, man, why did it take us that long? But you know, hindsight's 2020. Yeah, I see there's a 2-month gap between Narcissa's June 28th run and then an August 27th run.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, 2013 was the year that Wii U HD came out.
Yeah, that was so much happened.
Yeah,
like
what was it like? Yeah, go ahead.
So we like completely broke the vanilla game, and then simultaneously while that was happening, we had these demos for the HD version in Best Buy, where the demos originally had the storage glitch in them, and there was the possibility that the HD version would have been released and had the storage glitch and would have been like this new version that's so much better to run.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people were afraid that the vanilla game was just going to die because of that, because this HD version would come along and just have no downsides to it.
Mm-hmm.
But then on release day, when everyone played the game, we realized that the storage glitch was actually patched. The reason that it got patched is because people did super swims and crashed the game while the demo was at Best Buy. And so we ended up having these two games that were actually pretty distinct and both very fun to play, especially since the HD version got its own unique glitch in item sliding.
Yeah. And
the kind of ridiculous thing is that dry storage was only found in September 2012. So it was like a year before the release of that game. And I think if it got found even like 6 months later or something like that, then the HD version would have had the storage glitch. So much happened in 2013.
It is crazy to think that if y'all hadn't found it for a while, or if, you know, maybe if the, the demo, I guess, I wonder if the demo sends stats back or something, you know, like, oh, the game crashed. It's like, okay, error log, and then people can go back and find out what happened. I am curious, but that would be really weird if there was like a unpatched version of that game that had Super Swim on it, and that became like the de facto. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, what we have with the randomizer having storage and also the HD improvements kind of fills that purpose, which is really cool. But I would love to play a version of HD that had storage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's more or less where Narcissa went off to, right?
Yeah, so Narcissa's plans after HD came out was to speedrun that game, and I think she did speedruns of it for a few months until early 2014. I'm not totally sure what her like speedrunning stuff was after that. It might have been Ocarina of Time any percent and getting that famous 1810 run. But yeah, she never actually ended up coming back to Vanilla Wind Waker. I think she did like 1 or 2 runs just for fun later on, but never anything serious. And that 427.53 run, which was before the HD version was released, was her last PB in that game.
There you go. And sort of in the wake of that, 2014 looks like it's kind of a scramble year, right? Like Demon's mostly there, but you also see Gymnast and SVA show up and take records. I think that's also roughly when Chaotic Ace starts playing more, and like maybe that's 2015, but
yeah. So pretty much after the HD version was released, Demon didn't have as much competition at first because Narcissa was no longer doing runs. So I think for him that was sort of an excuse to take at least a little bit of a break. Now Demon never took a break more than like a few months for a while, but like a short break in early 2014, and that did give some other runners an opportunity to try to get the record. So Kolya was one of those runners. His username was actually like Kolya i7, and people said Kolja i7, but it's actually like named after the processor, which is kind of silly. But anyways,
okay.
Yeah, so this guy's like a German kid who grinded runs all the time and was just barely off the record. But because Demon had stopped playing the game for a little while, and because there was some slight optimizations with there's like the new treasure charts route. I don't totally remember what was different between Kolya's April 6th run and Demon's December 5th run. I'd probably need to go back and check that, but yeah, so just having the opportunity to have those few months of grinding while Demon wasn't playing the game gave him an opportunity to take that record. It did only last for 8 days because I think Demon came back right after, and he's just really, really good, and ended up getting the record back.
Yep.
Something else that's really interesting about this stuff, Demon just thrives off of competition, and every single time that his record's taken, he has come roaring back and immediately gotten it back, and also just started playing the game more. I mean, if you notice, there was the record by Kolya on April 6th, but then Demon got it on April 14th, 28th, and then in June and July.
Yeah.
And then when Gymnast took the record, Demon still got it back.
Yep, he's right back at it.
When SVA got the record, Demon got it back in a week as well. Ace's first record, Demon took it back a day later. So it's like every single time that there's been another runner who has challenged him, Demon has come back very quickly just because he can. He's stayed at top level for years.
Yeah.
And he's just motivated to do that.
Yeah. That's funny, but he's a demon. He's just I don't know how else to describe it. Definitely seems that every time that someone comes to take his record, it's just right back at it. So, and that's clear. It's not even like up for debate. It's very clear. Just even looking at the stats every time. 2 weeks later, he's back at it. Let's see here. That doesn't last forever, though, right? Eventually, Chaotic Ace would be able to get a leg up and continue. Is that because is Demon taking a break here, or is Chaotic Ace just better?
Yeah, so in 2015, Ace had a lot of records. I think at least part of this time, Demon was playing other Zelda games like Twilight Princess, and also just not playing Wind Waker the entire year. But at the same time, Ace, I think, was the first runner who could actually compete with Demon long term since Narcissa. And Ace was just really, really good at the game. And I think he had just as much of a drive to optimize the game to its full potential that Demon did. And so they really pushed each other to try to beat each other's runs and optimize the game in small ways. Pretty much all of the improvements from like when the run was around 421 all the way to sub 4 were just a bunch of small optimizations and improvements, and them just practicing segments and just getting way better at the game. So there wasn't like these major route changes that we saw in 2013. Instead, it was just them getting better.
Yeah, what would you say is the last major route change before? Well, I guess was just bombs early, and then we have small things after that, right? Like the new treasure chart route, and then...
Well, the Deku Leaf early was a really big route change.
Okay.
So for that, we ended up doing Forbidden Woods before Dragon Roost Cavern. So it was the first time that we saw dungeons be done out of order. So I think that saved a couple minutes at the time. So you would pretty much go to Forest Haven, get the Deku Leaf. You would still do... you would get bombs first. So you get bombs, go to Forest Haven, get the Deku Leaf, then do Forbidden Woods the same way that you did before. Go to Neighbor's Pearl, then go to Dragon Roost Cavern, and because you had the leaf, you would be able to still skip the delivery bag, and you wouldn't need to get that bottle from Bomb Island like the old delivery bag skip route did. So it was just like this really clean route with the leaf. And also the leaf just made parts of Dragon Roost Cavern faster. So pretty much like every single thing that we found out about it as that route got developed more just seemed like it would save more and more time. The thing that sort of scared some people off at first is the route would mean that you completely skip the bottle, which would mean you wouldn't be able to get that elixir soup from Grandma. So the elixir soup gives you double damage, and it also gives you full magic, and you can use it infinite times because of the soup dupe glitch.
Yes.
But it really doesn't save as much time as you'd think. It's really similar to the boomerang. I think the good thing is in 2014, we were a little bit smarter, and there wasn't as much pushback on the route because of not having soup, but there still was some debating about that.
You would think double damage would be nice for like big boss fights and stuff, but I guess
so
faster.
A lot of the bosses are sort of cycle based, so it doesn't save too much time in those places. And then it really makes the most difference in these like combat caves like Savage Labyrinth, where you have a ton of small enemies that you need to defeat. So instead of doing like 3 sword slashes, you might be able to kill it in 1 sword slash for each enemy, and then that all adds up because you have to kill so many enemies, and if you can keep your double damage, it's super nice. But at the same time, what happened instead was that people found strategies that would let them kill enemies faster without the double damage, and those types of things would just negate that time save that we got with the soup.
Yeah.
and that just made the elite for elite route significantly better.
Okay. There we go.
One other thing that happened that really allowed Demon and Ace to push the run significantly lower was the super swim buffering, which was in 2014. So prior to that, super swims were pretty much completely random. Runners would release the super swim and hope for good speed, and if you didn't get good speed, you would drown and then just reset your run. So we figured out a way to pause the game, and then based on Link's animation in the swimming, like which frame of the swimming animation he's in, based on that, you can figure out what speed you're going to get, and then you can get consistently good speed. I actually made a video on that explained.
I would like to see it. Maybe not like right this exact moment. You can find it later if you want.
I have it.
No.
I will.
You can either DM it to me or post it in whatever the channel.
Group.
Cool. Okay, I want to look at that in a minute. But
yeah, so there was that super swim buffering, which made super swims a lot more consistent. And then I think the next year, I don't know exactly when it was, but at some point after that, there was the ESS swimming, which made super swims even easier. You wouldn't even need to buffer for frames. You just hold ESS position and you just don't lose speed as quickly. So those things combined just made super swims, especially long super swims, a lot easier. And then they wouldn't be these like reset sort of pseudo RNG parts of the run anymore.
It's good. That makes things more consistent, which means more runs happen, which means people get better at them.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. Are there any other major route changes before 2016 or before the end of 2016? I don't have, at this point, I have no more notes. I'm going in blind at this point. So I forget all of the things we talked about in the early call, but because there's the record in April 2016, and there's no records in 2017, right? Are there any major route changes between Super Swim buffering and then?
So there aren't major route changes. Let me see if I can get a date on this. Otherwise, I'll just talk about it in general. Oh, yeah. Okay. So in March of 2015, there was an improved mid-game route that was found. So that sort of rearranged some of the islands that you would do. It involved clipping out of Mother and Child, and then also entering Headstone Island early with a clip. But that wasn't like a major route change. It was sort of similar to that new treasure charts route that was implemented at the end of 2013, where we just sort of rearranged some of the overworld order and saved a little bit of time, but it wasn't like a fundamental route change that completely altered everything.
Okay. All right. So then, just besides some, some like mid-game reorganizing, it's pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The run in like late 2016 that Ace got looks very similar to the runs in like 2014. It's just faster.
Okay. Is there like a rivalry between Demon and Ace? Because you said that like Ace is the first person since Narcissa to like actually be able to like compete with Demon long term. Like what does it look like as someone who's spectating? Someone who's on the outside is like every day this back and forth, or just like every week, month, or what does it look like?
Yeah, so my impression of Narcissa is that she kind of wanted to stay away from a lot of the other people in the community and not like directly interact with them besides on forums. And I think in 2012 and 2013, that's sort of what led to this dynamic where there wasn't like this one big community where everyone talked together, and instead you kind of had these like two big streamers that were competing, and really you didn't there wasn't like much. I don't actually know if they DM'd. I have no idea, but there wasn't like this big interaction between them and the community. I think with Ace and Demon, it was definitely a much more it felt like a friendlier rivalry. I mean, Demon talked about Ace and like wanted people to watch him because he knew that Ace was going to get good and take his record at some point, and he did. So that was something that happened. I think also back then we had a more active Skype group that eventually turned into the Wind Waker speedrunning Discord server. So in there, we just had the whole community talking and discussing routes and strats and how to improve those. And Ace and Demon were both involved in those discussions. So really everyone who was involved in the Wind Waker community got to talk to both of them. And they were friendly with each other and wanted to see each other succeed.
I get you. Yeah, that's a great description, you know, because I think you see that Narcissa is kind of on this like, keep everyone at an arm's distance, right? I'm just speedrunning, you know. And then this one's more like everyone's like, yo, man, check out Ace. He's going to be so good. You know, like I root for that guy. And then, yeah, it definitely seems like a lot of a big friendly, you know, to do, which is what I love about speedrunning.
And I think the stuff with Narcissa and like being more independent, a lot of that was just the speedrunning culture at the time and not necessarily something that she did on purpose, as far as I know.
Yeah. I get you. Yeah, not trying to throw shade at anybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Why do you think that Ace's run in April 2016 stood for like 2 years? Like, what about it was just something that stood for 20 months? Just a lack of motivation? Like nobody wanted to beat it, or it was so good that it would require something else? Or like what do you think would be the reason?
Yeah, so that run was just really good. Every single part of the run was clean besides sort of the mid-game section between Forsaken Fortress 2 and Earth Temple. So he did bleed a little bit of time there, but then everywhere else he saved a bunch of time. I think what also happened was Demon didn't really play Wind Waker that much in late 2015, early 2016. So that was really after Demon got that first sub for the 359.51, I think he was really satisfied with the progress that he made in the game, but then Ace wanted to push the game further. So Ace took it down to a 355.44.
Okay.
Yeah, so then at that point, Ace didn't really want to keep pushing the game because that run was so good. And at that point, he'd been playing the game for a long time. And then Demon didn't really have the motivation to play it again because he already had the sub 4. So the game just kind of got stagnant. And then obviously manual super swims came along, Demon started playing again, and then barrier skip. So, but really like that, it's interesting. We didn't have any records in the entirety of 2017, and that usually doesn't happen for a game that tends to have 10 to 20 records every single year, or at least we did during some of these early times. But at some point, you kind of run out of major discoveries that you can make.
Yeah, for sure. I think it sounds to me like both players were like, okay, we're really happy with this run. And the two biggest and best runners of the entire community were like, okay, we're going to put the game down for a little bit. And it was just like nobody could catch up. Nobody wanted to catch up. And we're just going to let it sit for a while until something happens.
Yeah, so There was while Ace and Demon were running the game, there was also another runner named Chastifer who was running with them. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, he never ended up getting the record, but he did get a sub 4 time.
Mm.
So his sub 4 was November 2016. So when Ace had a 355.44, Chastifer had a 358.55, which I think was the second place time.
I'm sure we can fact check that. That sounds about right.
But yeah, there was it was just hard to push the game any further than that though, without the manual super swims and
Mhm.
barrier skip.
Sounds like it. All right. Have we run through generally your wealth of knowledge?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
At least the the stuff I
Yeah,
wanted to talk about. Everything else would be like sort of secondhand at this point. So
I get you. I guess one other last big topic is that barrier skip is like the sort of looming threat or whatever, you know what I mean? Like for the entirety of the history, you know. I
yeah.
think for as far back as like 2013 or maybe earlier, I think people knew Ganon's tower is right there. If we can just get there, we can like cut this game in half.
Yeah,
Even probably more.
people were trying to find barrier skip from when I first started watching Wind Waker speedruns in early 2013.
Mm-hmm.
It was this thing that we knew would be like a 3-hour time save. And there were so many different methods that people tried with like zombie hovering under the barrier, zombie hovering over the barrier, trying to do like this fake death zombie hover. So really none of those worked, and I personally believed that it was never going to happen, and I was completely wrong, and that makes me very happy.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, just in general, like I remember seeing the video that Narcissa put out about like, and I rewatched it a couple of days ago before going into an interview just to like refresh my memory. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot. This is like it's a cylinder. There's two cylinders, right? There's a cylinder that's a knockback, and then there's just a solid wall, right?
Yeah.
And you can't go any further than like a single step. You can't walk a step away from the wall, otherwise you're back on the other side of the barrier, and it's just you have no room to do anything, and there's just nothing you can do. It goes all the way up and all the way down, and there's just no way around it. And I remember seeing that and thinking that's a big deal. And I am sort of curious. Whenever it was found in HD, did you think that like, oh, of course HD has it, like, or was it like a moment of like, oh, HD's got it, that means we can do it too? Like, what
Oh,
were
I
your thoughts?
was so I was really salty about HD getting barrier skip.
Yeah.
To some extent, it was like a mix of jealousy that they have this item sliding trick that completely breaks the game that we don't have in this game, but also
Mhm.
sort of relief that the game isn't broken yet.
Mhm.
So yeah, it was definitely weird when only one of the games had the barrier skip and not the other. I feel like when that happened, people sort of forgot about the vanilla game because of all the excitement that HD got with barrier skip.
Mhm.
I remember Trihex actually making a tweet talking about how much the HD record had dropped. And in that tweet, he like posted the Wind Waker HD world record history and then cited Narcissa's early run, saying like he remembered when Narcissa had her first sub 5. But that was a different game.
Yeah.
So it was like I feel like in some people's minds it was like the two games got mixed up and HD sort of took everyone's attention. Barrier skip just made it hard for the vanilla game to keep getting excitement around it.
Mhm. And then how did you feel when we actually, well, not we, but when it was actually found, like, yo, we have an actual barrier skip and it works. And or I guess this is another thing is that I heard about the actor unloading thing and I was kind of like, it's not a real barrier skip. Like that doesn't feel real. You know what I mean? For some reason, I was just like, oh, that's how you're doing it? Oh, that's kind of lame, It wasn't until the bomb push method that I was like, yo, we really did it though. So I'm curious what your thoughts are when it's like actor unloading was found and then finally the bomb push is found for vanilla.
Yeah, with the actor unloading, I sort of expected it to be this task only thing because it's really hard when you're messing around with the memory to actually consistently unload the barrier. I'm really surprised that it got so consistent in real time, but that's what happens when people spend a lot of time with the memory viewer in Dolphin trying to make setups.
Yeah.
But yeah, that bomb push method definitely changed things significantly. I don't think it really saved that much time in the grand scheme of things because the run was already so fast. Because that the actor unloading setup got so optimized by that point. But yeah, it does feel nice to have a way to just clip through the barrier, just like there is in the HD version. But wow, I'm surprised there's just a hole in the barrier. I mean,
yeah, just a little crack.
Yeah,
just enough to squeeze through. I think initially it didn't say, but I'm looking at the chart and it's like pretty quickly that went from being a 3 hour 48 minute time to being a 1 hour 15 minute time.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I meant like the bomb push barrier skip didn't save that much time. The actor unloading one did as soon as people got the setup even reasonably quickly.
okay. So which one's faster? That's what I don't know. Is actor unloading faster or is the bomb push method faster?
I'm pretty sure it's the
optimally.
bomb push.
Okay.
Just because you don't need to do that all the setup.
Mm-hmm.
I think even in the last record, without the bomb push, Linkus still took multiple tries to actually unload the barrier just because it's so finicky.
Yeah. Okay.
And all the most recent records use the bomb push.
All right. Okay. I think that answers all of the questions that I had. You were very helpful, and my knowledge has been expanded greatly. Also, there were a couple of really great sound bites that you gave me, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm still gonna try to. I know I said I was gonna go through some videos and put down more info, but then I've been super busy the last few weeks. I'm still gonna try to fill in some more stuff, and also if any of you have questions in here, I can answer.
Absolutely.
Stuff. But yeah, pretty excited for what we're gonna do with this.
Hell yeah, brother. Me too. All right, let's go ahead and end this recording here. So.